It's time for fun, learning, commentary, laughs, and more. Care of the most diverse group in the genealogy and family history world. Panel in these pedigree streets: Angela, James, Linda, Alex, Ellen, Tony, Shelley, Teresa, Bernice, Felicia, Willie, Renata, and Tasia. It's BlackProGen Live, genealogy, family history research with flavor.
Hello, everybody out there, and good evening. I want to welcome you to Black Pro Gen Live. And tonight, we just got an exciting episode for you on the Civil War and the GAR. My name is True Lewis, and I'm going to be your co host for the evening. And I'm just so excited. We're going to have a great show. So let us know out there in the chat where you're coming in from, and we'll give you a shout out there. So now I'm going to turn it over to your host and our girl, Nika Smith.
What's good, True Lewis? How are you?
I'm fine.
Girl, well, I would just tell, I don't know if Neff Hawthorne is in the chat room tonight, but I just wanted to let her know that the Epsom salt went down on the tomatoes this week. So we're hoping for a revival, just like we're hoping for a revival for Aretha. Since she's in hospice, my tomatoes are right there next to her right now, unfortunately. We're going to send a shout out to the Queen of Soul. She is part of our history. We're going to give her some love. Oh, no. Shelly, really?
Did you hear it from Roland?
Did you hear it from Roland?
Yeah. Was it not true?
I don't know. We're getting news here, you
I'll
guys.
go look it up.
Yeah, that she's already
news
passed.
earlier was not true. There was a post earlier.
Okay.
Not yet. The news.
That's where I got.
Someone had put it up. She had not yet.
Okay, so it's still. Well, we're praying for a peaceful transition at this point, right? So we definitely want to give her some love this evening. Hopefully my tomatoes will come back. I will tell Angela I did see about 5 out there. They're trying to be strong. So hopefully that Epsom salt worked. But nonetheless, you all, thank you so much for joining us. The topic for the evening: tracing back to a Civil War veteran can be key in breaking through the brick wall. Learn about these priceless files along with the history and documents generated by the fraternal organization Civil War Veterans founded in 1866. Thanks for joining us for After the War Has Gone, Civil War Pensions, and the Grand Army of the Republic. Love or hate the new look and feel for the show? Have a question or comment? Join the conversation now. Participate in the live chat on YouTube to the top right hand of the screen if you're watching on a computer, and at the bottom of the YouTube app on your mobile device. Also, weigh in on Twitter by tweeting us at BlackProGen or using the hashtag BlackProGen. If you've ever been like, man, I can't believe I missed that show, I need reminders. Well, here is your reminder to set reminders. All you need to do is head to my YouTube page or YouTube channel and click set reminder under the episode you're interested in, or simply subscribe to the channel and you'll get a reminder each and every time we go live. Also, just want to remind you all, I did load the rest of the shows for the rest of the season. So feel free to go and get your set reminder on ASAP. If you're tired of seeing Confederate flagships and flowers and the wrong oil paintings as profile images for your ancestors, BlackProGen Live is here to save the day. Download our new icons for online family tree profiles today. We're adding new ones all the time, so if we miss something, let us know. All right. Quick intros of our panel, because we've got a ton of information to share tonight. It's going to be information overload. So if you need time to go and get your pad of paper or whatever else that you down, here's the time to do it while we're doing intro. Starting off with the lady in flowers or polka dots. I'm not quite sure which, but it is a black background and white polka dots. It's Shelley Murphy.
Good evening, everyone. Family Tree Girl from Central Virginia.
All right, next up, we'll go with Ellen Fernandez-Sacco.
Hey, Ellen Fernandez-Sacco here calling in from Tampa, Florida.
All right, all right. And our newly seeing lady with new eyes in her face.
Yes.
Our
Hello.
70-year-old with new bright eyes, also known as Bernice Alexander Bennett, who was gallivanting her 70-year-old self all up in and through New York like she was 25 with her twin sister.
Hey, you're as old as you think you are. And yes, that was me. Hello, everybody.
All right, and her friend, it's color coordinating so nicely to the left of my screen with her wonderful scarf of orange and red this evening. My Freedman sister, Angela Walton Raji.
Hello, everyone. This is Angela Walton Raji coming to you from the Eastern Seaboard on the Chesapeake Bay in Maryland. Good to be here.
You always make me want biscuits when you say Chesapeake Bay.
Biscuits.
Biscuits.
I don't know why.
Crabs.
I know.
It should be crabs.
I'm thinking Cheddar Bay biscuits. This sounds horrible. I think of Red Lobster when I think of Angela. That's just so bad.
You getting the real deal from her.
That's really bad. That's really bad.
Maybe Angela makes a mean biscuit, though. Do you make a mean biscuit?
No, I'm better at cornbread.
Okay. Okay, so she's a cornbread connoisseur. That's
girl.
all right. She knows her ministry. She knows her ministry. All right, going down the only Y chromosome to join us this evening, our friend in eating coma, James Morgan III.
Good evening, everybody. Yeah, so for those who don't know, I had a pleasure of having a Sunday dinner cooked by Michael Twitty, and I actually woke up like an hour late for work on Monday. So yeah. Yeah, I'm actually still sleeping now, but it was good. But anyway, I'm James Morgan. I'm happy to be here, as always, coming to you from the nation's capital. And I just feel the need to make sure I let everyone know that I am recording this conversation.
All right, Omarosa.
Hey, she used a pen. Look, she didn't use her phone because they don't let you have a phone in the situation room. You got to deposit that in the basket. But here's the question, though. Why hasn't anybody asked who he called the N-word?
Mm-hmm.
She said who it was.
Okay, Shelly, how you coming with all this tea tonight? And that I don't know. Who did she say who it was?
It was Jack, because I've watched every one of them darn interviews. And Savannah, I think, on NBC asked her who was it, and it was Mr. Jackson from the first or second
Kwame.
Apprentice. Kwame, yeah, that's who he called it. And Kwame is not responding and won't.
Okay.
Yeah.
As he should not.
As he should not.
As he
Don't
should
get
not.
in it. I just hope it's real.
Well, he had choice words for Puerto Ricans, apparently, according to her, too.
Oh, see, here's the thing, and Miss Angela got that. If y'all don't stop talking about this heifer face,
Thank you.
Here's what I think. I'm just gonna put this out there, and it's August 14th, and y'all can say Nika said it. I think she was a plant from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I think that people gave her the artillery to, and I said 2 years ago she was going to be his downfall, and nobody believed me. All of my things are coming true.
Not yet.
That's the face of somebody who's just been validated.
He's so crazy. Let's go ahead, head up north to Teresa Vega.
Teresa Vega, uptown near the Boogie Down, Radiant Roots, Bariqua branches. And I just want to say, I'm feeling very unbought and unbossed. So,
All right now. Your victory. Amen.
That's a good one.
Amen. Amen.
Shirley's on the back. I can't do it, but her
Shelly is on the back of your t-shirt.
Shirley Chisholm.
Oh, I thought she said Shelly Murphy was on the back of her t-shirt. Oh, okay. I was about to say Shelly Murphy got a brand of t-shirts and she didn't tell none of us, y'all. I was about to be.
We
really
were never
upset.
the problem. Is a brand.
It is a brand. You're right. You're right. And look, Ellen's got hers on. Look at our brand. The brand's being represented. Angela, you should make scarves. That would have been a perfect thing. random scarves. Nonetheless, True, come off mute, girl. You got some stuff. You got a whole little drama around your neck tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just got my camouflage on. I'm in dress in
She
honor of
ready.
my ex-soldiers there tonight, and I'm here at Fort Knox, Kentucky.
Fort Knox.
Yes, the Pentagon of the South, baby. So yeah, it's your girl True
Guarding the
Liz.
gold.
She is guarding the gold.
I don't know if it's in there though, y'all. Don't get your hopes up high. That thing
It's
is
gone already.
Well,
if you drive by there and stop too long, the popo's coming.
Girl, Lord today. Well, you know what? Our chat room is cracking off. Tom,
Yes, they
Tom,
are.
I have to say Tom Joyner was going to join us. I meant Tom Reed. My bad. Wrong Tom. He said he won't be here tonight. Lord, I am on one. Oh my gosh. I've been hanging around my son too long. He's silly too. Let's see. Patriva Mack is joining us from Tampa, Florida. Kristen Clegg is in the house. Adrian Wells, Diana James Winder. We've got Shannon Christmas, Denise Muhammad, who always joins us. Jan Murphy from the San Francisco Bay. Yay. Love you. I'm sad you guys are burning up right now. Actually, the whole state of California seems to be on fire. And whenever this happens, my father-in-law has to ask me, well, didn't it burn down the last time? And I'm like, Dad, it's a big state. There's a lot of open space, just like here in Tennessee. No, it did not burn down the last time. Let's see. OMG Matthew. Looks like it's a hot and humid where he lives. All right. We've got a lot of folks in the house tonight. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of BlackProGen. So before we jump head first into the content of the evening, we got to do a setup. And normally for the show, we typically don't rely on a lot of slides or a lot of setup, but because we have so much to share with you tonight, yes, like literally we all should be doing this. Because it is baby, it is jam packed. It is like, I don't know, like people in leggings. It shouldn't be in them, perhaps. It is
I'm
like
wearing
sardines.
mine.
I have on some now.
That's what I
I
said.
have on
I got some.
mine.
For those who have not,
some
for those new to
here.
for those new to BlackProGen, if we're laughing this hard early, that's how you know it's going to be a classic.
Oh my God. I didn't know Shelly could get her leg up that high.
Your auntie can get the leg up that high.
That's about to be a
She's
hashtag.
good.
Okay, let me get myself
Don't
together.
forget what you said.
I know, I'm trying, but Shelly made me try in the
Just
first
like-
15 minutes. Okay.
You gotta do some yoga
Okay,
now.
let's rock. Let's rock.
Yes, and somebody said those look hot, Shelly.
Thank
Uh-oh.
you. Who said that?
Good
Oh
night.
my gosh,
Thank you, Marion.
It was Marion that said that. Lord, you
I
guys
see
are
Marion.
a mess. Normally, I start out with my question, my
Let's
leading
go.
whatever, but we've got a ton of content tonight, you all. It's a lot. So we want to make sure that you get the very basic stuff before we start jumping into the how-tos, whatever. We never steer you wrong. We always help you find the best stuff. So let me go ahead and get through these background slides. It's just a few, but it's just to go ahead and set up the conversation for the evening. All right, so what we're talking about Civil War pensions. You got to give a background on the Civil War, just a brief one, right? So for those of you who are going to come in the comments and say, you left out. No, we're not talking about anything else but pensions. Pensions, that's it, right? So when we're talking about the Civil War, we got to remember the United States colored troops made up over 10% of the Union or Northern Army, even though they were prohibited from joining until July 1862, 15 months into the war. So you got to keep in mind that, the colored troops, they were technically not allowed to join until 15 months into the war, a year and a month into the war. Actually, yeah, actually a year and 3 months into the war. The Navy comprised 25%. They were 25% of the Union Navy. Right. So oftentimes when we talk about, people of color involvement, African-American involvement in the Civil War, we usually just focus on the Army. We hardly ever sometimes talk about the Navy. So you got to keep that in mind as well. And, with this statistic, 1% of the Northern population was African-American. So keep these facts and figures in your mind as the conversation goes on tonight. Moving forward, An act granting pensions to soldiers and sailors who are incapacitated for the performance of manual labor and providing for pensions to widows, minor children, and dependent parents. That was the language that was in the Pension Act. Okay, so this is pensions to soldiers and sailors who were incapacitated for performance of manual labor and providing pensions to widows, minor children, and dependent parents. Okay, and so this is key because we think of minors now as anybody under 18. With pensions, it was kids were younger. I want to say it was 16 years old, right? It was a couple years younger, right? That a pensioner could claim their children up until their 16th birthday, and they literally would do the calculation on the month and the day and the year that the child was born, and that would then they'd have that roll there so that they can stop paying on that particular pension for that for that particular child. All right, moving forward, the financial impact, right? So in 1866, the federal government spent $15.9 million on veterans benefits. By 1893, it was spending $165.3 million, an increase basically reflecting the rapid expansion of the number of veterans eligible for benefits. You also have to look at it from this perspective because medical advances and things took place, right? A lot less soldiers were dying while on the battlefield, especially when you're talking about the Civil War. So that, of course, meant that left a higher percentage of people who could have survived, but then still been injured, which would have prohibited them from working, after they came home. So that's something to consider. And last slide for right now is literally just a chart. This is, you literally can go on the National Archives and pull up the numbers on the number of pensions that were issued by the government. I just broke it down to certain years just to show the disparity between the numbers from one year to the next, right? And look at this, 1861, there was a total of 7,916 pensions that were issued. By 1866, that number jumped to 125,000, almost 126,000. And then when you get to 1886, 20 years later, that is 324,000 pensioners.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at the number of widows, right? That's the number that jumps a lot, of course, next to the Army invalids, right? But this is something that you should really keep in mind when we're talking about pensions is that, due to medical advances, other things, you had a lot more people surviving war than you did in previous wars. So with that said, I just wanted to go over that really quickly, just some, like I said, some facts and figures to kind of guide and lead our conversation for the evening. So the first question that I have, especially after sharing the statistics and everything, is why are Civil War pensions so important to people of color genealogy research?
I feel like if Bernice isn't the first person to answer the
I
question.
am going to answer the question. Thank you. These records give you an insight as to what was happening before the war and after the war. And so for many people, for the first time, they're actually getting a first-person overview of when they enlisted, why they enlisted. And it is something that everyone should really seek out, that information, to find out about their ancestors. In those records, you will find individuals naming who was the former slave owner. They will also tell you how many people they were sold to, why, as I said before. You will also find that some of these individuals will enlist under one name, but when they apply for their pension, they will be under another name, which means that they will be explaining why my name was Jones at this time, but now it's Pennington. This is information that helps the genealogists truly understand, and they're able to track their family. They can also find information on witnesses. These are people that are in the community that can attest to who these soldiers are. You want that. You want to find as much information about that soldier, about that soldier's family and about that soldier's community. It's in the record. It provides you with that type of information. Not to mention that these records are also possible and available to invalids, to minors, to widows, and to mothers and fathers. Many people don't realize that the parents could have applied also. So you have a wealth of information at your fingertips when you get a Civil War invalid and widow's pension record.
All right. Great setup, Bernice. Look at you taking the conch and running with it. All right. Who's going to take the baton next? I think, James, you're eager. Take yourself off mute.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I think I think Bernice really highlighted it. I think the key is, and I think part of the inspiration for this episode is understanding the effects of the war on families. A lot of these folks actually are coming out of enslavement, but many are not, and so for us today as genealogists and family historians, sometimes these are records that can provide a gateway window into what was happening in their lives before the war. Who are they married to? Who's collecting their pensions years later, or what have you, as Bernice mentioned. And then the thing to me about the GAR, which is very important as well, is that this is an organization of soldiers that come together to organize, similar to how we have like the veterans associations and whatnot of today. Was it Veterans of Foreign Wars and whatnot? VFW. This is the precursor to that. And you will find a lot of documentation be in newspapers as well as in the organization records of the GAR, the Grand Army of the Republic, that will tell you about the issues that they face. And this is particularly important for African descent soldiers, because again, we know that there's a gap in the documentation between people, or at least some people would like us to think there is, between people of color and our counterparts. So it's important that we know. It's important to find these records, and it's important to know where they are.
Absolutely. So why is it, so we talked about what you can find in them, right? Of course, we're going to tell people how you find the records and all that. That's coming later. But why is it important, even for folks who can't trace beyond the 1870 census? Why are these records important for them as well? Because sometimes I often hear people say, well, the earliest thing I have is the 1870 census. So why am I going to look for a pension? Or why would I even look for that? What's your answer to that question?
If your ancestors lived in the South, and people tend to forget, that's where the war was fought, in the South. And if they lived near any community where there was a battle, it does not have to have been a major battle. It could be a small skirmish, but it's something that would have been entered in some degree on the official record as having occurred. And if there were people who were enslaved in that vicinity, and if that's where your ancestors lived, near this place where an incident took place, then that is why you want to look and see what did happen, because whether or not your ancestors served, they were affected by that battle. We see on the news every day people fleeing some turmoil occurring in whatever country we see on the news. Well, this was happening here in this country, and people were doing things to get out of the way. Enslaved people, by a certain point in the war, by 1863, they got a different message. If there's a Union army, get to the Union line. So whether your people were there, they may have been in a contraband camp and their lives were affected. And that is particularly why you want to research the Civil War.
You will also, and I just want to ditto what Angela just said, in the community where your ancestors came from, you will find that there are people that served in the Civil War. Your ancestor may serve as a witness to that person. I was really surprised when I read my grandmother's 1913 marriage license to find out that one of the witnesses to her license was a Civil War soldier. And so right there, that's given me insight into who they related to in that community. I found the same thing happening with one of my ancestors' homestead records. His witness was a Civil War soldier. And so I was able to pull that file to learn more about that soldier, thus learning more about the community. So you don't want to say, well, my ancestors were not in the war. That's not the point. They were in that community. You want to know what was going on in the community and how the war had an impact on their lives. And they're telling you that because you're seeing the narrative.
Right.
Which is awesome, because the key thing, I like what you said, is the witnesses and in the community, because in those pension records, you have affidavits or somebody's given, they're a witness to whatever, or they're vouching for that soldier or that wife, as in the widow's pension. And so you're getting something of what's, again, in the community, but they're also talking about that soldier. So you're also learning a little bit more. I've seen some that actually describe how they looked, stocky or whatever, and maybe they're going after a medical, getting out for medical reasons or something because of diphtheria or whatever it is. And it's amazing how they're saying, oh, so-and-so lived across the road, he did this. So they're validating where they're at in this certain time. So I just think that's awesome. There's stories right there, just as in from the witnesses that are vouching for that soldier.
Yeah, and I would say don't just hold out looking for your particular ancestors
Correct.
as a witness. You want to, if you see any familiar names within your community, people that you see in Freedmen's Bureau documents with your family. In fact, let's be real. There are like a bounty list among the Freedmen's Bureau documents that list the names of the soldiers out along with their companies, and all that kind of stuff. So that's something to keep in mind, is that you may actually find a link back to a Civil War veteran through the Freedmen's Bureau, right?
Right.
So that's there also, as I was alluding to, you may not have a person that served on my Atlas branch. I haven't found a single person that served, but I have found them as witnesses for collateral relatives and other people. And hearing their voices, to me, I think that's one of the most powerful parts of a pension file. We'll get to that eventually, but it's hearing from the voice of the person who was sharing their experience or their knowledge of that person. And just to kind of up the ante on the statistics, the viewer should know, if you have ancestry tied to these 4 states, you have no excuse. You need to be up until 3 and 5 in the morning or at work, not working, because I know how y'all do, because we're genealogists, right? We live and breathe this stuff. I know, gosh, the thought. If you have ancestry tied to Louisiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Mississippi, those 4 states, 9 times out of 10, you have more than one person connected to your family that has served and that has a pension. Why did I list those states off? Why did I say Louisiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Mississippi? Those states had the highest number of colored troops. Louisiana had 24,000 colored troops that just came from Louisiana. And you got to be careful ascribing the location of where the regiments were started, right? To your ancestors, because they could have picked up from different places. So this is why learning the regimental history will help you, because it'll help you understand where they picked up different troops. So here's the next question. How do you find out if a family member served? And that's because that, of course, there isn't going to be a pension unless they served, or unless they were connected to somebody who served as a minor or as a parent or as a surviving spouse.
Right. Well, you do have the 1890 census veteran schedule, and that might give you some information. But you also have other documents that you can look for to find out if your ancestors served in the Civil War.
It's interesting. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Just mention about the registrations, Angela. Go for it.
Well, one thing I want to say, if you have an ancestor that you have found in the 1900 census, and they were born in the 1830s or the 1840s, they were of age. That's the first question. Were they of age to have served? That's number one. Then, if they were, and hopefully if their name isn't Johnson or Smith, although there were thousands of Johnsons and Smiths who did serve, but you want to go to a free website, the Soldiers and Sailors System, or the Soldiers and Sailors Database. This site is maintained by the National Park Service, and you can put in a search for your ancestor's name. You're going to have more success, obviously, if the name isn't Johnson or Smith, because there's so many of them. But if you have an ancestor particularly who was of age, and then you put in the name, you're going to be able to get a list of soldiers with that name who served. Now, of course, you're going to have to then click on the regiment to see where they're organized and where that regiment also fought. There is a description on that site when you click on the, and it'll tell you every place that they went in a very brief paragraph. That paragraph is taken from a very useful tool, the Compendium of the War of the Rebellion by Frederick Dyer. It's over 1,700 pages, but it's in little bullets for you right online on that database. First, if he's of age, and then secondly, if you can find that name in the database, you'll have a start.
All right. Anything else you want to add, Shelley, to that?
I was just going to add, I always look for a registration first and where they registered, because I'm glancing at other names on that list that all came from the same area. Doesn't mean they all serve together, but at least I'm conscious of that community or in that area where they registered. And then I go hit the sailors, and soldiers database from there. But again, where was that station at where they went in to register? Because, like Ohio, for an example, where my relative lived is not where he registered. It was the next county over. Then, and Angela can cite the units, but a lot of the Ohio soldiers didn't serve in your Ohio units. And another thing, if we could clarify regular service versus USCT service, because there's a distinction. And I love to turn it back over to Miss Angela and also reference the map in the Freedmen Bureau site. They also have where the USCTs were at, and you can explain that. But that's one of my favorite things to go look at, where, besides where the field offices are at and all of that,
Right.
it's also some of the USCT units. Angela?
We have a battle map. Right.
Yes.
Thank you, Shelley. In terms of the Black soldiers who served in the Union Army, there were the soldiers who served in the regular army, meaning these were soldiers, I guess you could say professional soldiers, for lack of a better word. We're talking the soldiers from the movie Glory, the 54th and 55th Massachusetts Infantry. We're also talking the 29th Connecticut. They were regular army, as opposed to the volunteers that were allowed to enlist after 1863, when the Bureau of the U.S. Colored Troops was established. Colored troops, of which there are almost 200,000 of them, those are volunteers. Also, their term of service was different. Soldiers in the regular army, they could get out after a year's time. The U.S. Colored Troops typically had to commit to 3 years as well. And that's why you see a lot of them were not mustered out until 1866, and some didn't get home until 1867. Those who served in Virginia at the time of the surrender in April 65, that was part of the Army of the Potomac. The Army of the Potomac was sent to the Gulf of Mexico to patrol the border. And many of them you'll see on their service records, they were mustered out in Indianola, Texas, or Brazo, Santiago. And so, of course, those were USCTs and not the regular soldiers of the regular army as well. Mapping the Freedmen's Bureau, we do have, in fact, I sort of talked myself into something earlier this week. I was talking to Nika, and I said, oh my gosh, she had to ask me where all these soldiers, is there a list anywhere?
You give me homework every time I talk to you, so this is what you get. This is what you get.
So yeah, you gave it to me, yeah. Because the question was, well, is there a list of where every single regiment came from? And I said, well, yes, there is. And then it dawned on me, oh my gosh, Tony, if you're out there watching, we've got to expand the map again because we need to create
Yay!
a map of the regiments and the states from which they originated. But they may have been organized there, but they could have served hundreds of miles away. And so
Absolutely.
it is important to look at their history too.
Before,
But we do have the battle map on the mapping of the Freedmen's Bureau
yes,
site.
before we go any further, because remember, you all, people who are not in the chat room, right? They're not getting the link. You know what I mean? They're watching live. They need to be able to see the resources that we're talking about. So we're going to take a brief little detour here, just so you all can see. This is what we were talking about. This is the National Park Service website. This is the Soldiers and Sailors database that they have that has the information on folks that served. And you can click the various different areas, right? They've got battles, prisoners of war, medals of honor, monuments, all that kind of stuff is here for your viewing pleasure. The second link we talked about, or second thing we talked about, were service records. And I actually prefer to look at these on fold 3, and it's just because probably I'm a creature of habit. But Shelly, the way that Shelly talked about seeing if you have an ancestor who is who served, or maybe you're interested in just browsing to see who was in a particular regiment. If you go to fold 3 and go to Civil War, and then come down to Civil War service records right here, click that, go to Union records. Okay. And then you're going to go to colored troops. It's its own state here. Okay. And then you've got all the infantries listed. Now, let's say you were interested in the 47th Infantry, right? Let me go here. You can come here and it will give you the introduction. That'll tell you how the stuff is organized, where they got the information from. But the way that Shelly does it is she just browses, and I've been doing this myself. Look at the names that are here. Is anyone familiar to you? You know, or anything, just browse. You're shoe shopping. You don't necessarily have to find something. And scroll down. You'll see this number in parentheses. That's the number of muster cards that that particular soldier has, or the number of images that are within his particular file, right? And so some people have more than others, right? But this is the area that we usually come to browse. It's that much easier. Another place that you can look here, especially if you're looking at Union records, is you can come over to the pension cards. I like these on fold 3 as well. These are going to be under the state that the pensioner applied under. Okay, so these are going to be different. Since we talked about my favorite place in the whole wide world to research, Louisiana, of course, there's going to be a ton. You're going to have different types of service, different arms, right?
Ooh, home guard.
Yeah, see, they've got home guards, heavy artillery, right? A couple different regiments. So that's another thing. Okay, so this is on fold 3. Also, mapping the Freedmen's Bureau, we talked about maps. So you're going to go to maps, and this is the map that Angela spoke about, which are the battle sites. You're going to scroll down here, and you see we've got a Freedmen's Bank branches. You've got USCT battle sites. Click View Map, and that will take you to the map that Angela and Tony painstakingly put together of the battle sites during the Civil War that featured U.S. colored troops. And it has a little history, and it tells you the units who were involved in that.
Awesome.
All right. Just wanted to make sure that I went through that whole part. Yes, ma'am.
Nika, if you have a second, can you go back just for 1 second? I wanted to show one other little trick that I sometimes do.
Okay.
If you can pull it up.
Sure.
Okay, when you get to it, when you first click on colored troops, and let's say that if you do have an ancestor, maybe who had an unusual name, and I'm trying to think.
Doing a service records?
Yes, just,
okay.
Let's see. Yes,
and then
on Union records, and go to colored troops. Now, don't do anything else. Where it says up at the top, type your search.
Yes.
Okay, then type in the name of your ancestor there. And if you just type in a name, and then now Charles Rogers, hit enter. Now there are tons of Charles Rogers.
You're isolating just to USCTs. Yeah.
Just the USCTs, Charles Rogers, people with that name. And you'll see there's one guy, only one Charles Rogers, as common as that name might be.
Well, because Rab was under Rab, but that's another story.
No. What I'm saying is that Charles Rogers is kind of a common sounding name.
Yeah.
But it just did a search of all the Charles Rogers, on the colored troops, not the whole Union Army, just the colored troops. And some, now you may get a list of 8, 10, 12, but it's easier to click on those 8, 10, or 12 as opposed to,
Right.
you know, maybe getting, if you're on the Soldiers and Sailors database, you may get 82 Charles Roberts in the whole Union Army. So it's just another trick that I like to do sometimes on the site.
Yes. All right. And is Bernice, you mentioned something else. Go back to
Yes.
full 3 and show
Well,
the
you're
widow's
already
pension.
on there. Yes, just click the widow's pensions, because I worked as a citizen archivist on digitizing some of the widow's pension records. And so you may find your pension record has already been digitized.
Oh,
So always
I
check
want to
that.
support that. I was at the archives today. I requested 3 files. I got 2 files. And I said, oh, I got a rejection. And they said, oh, no, this third mention, when you can see it later on today. So, yes, I want to support that, because one I was looking for today has been scanned. And thank you and your team, Bernice, for scanning it and putting it together. And you can actually look at the file itself.
Right.
Yeah,
And you
so-
can download the entire file.
wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
once
Yeah,
you
and I
find
would
it.
I would say, so just so people know how to get back to the widow's pension. So we were looking at just now were the service records, right? That's where we drilled down to. What Bernice is talking about are the widow's pensions, and remember, those are also issued based on the state they were applied in. And she's saying that a number of these have been scanned and they've been put online. So we just want to make sure you guys know to get back to the right spot. All right. So
Okay, one more thing. Since you were, have you closed out fold 3? I wanted to just,
no, we're gonna show a copy of an index card.
Okay, great.
That's in here.
okay.
So, all right. So we covered how you tell if someone served. There was a question in the chat room about Confederate pensions, and if your ancestor, was forced to come along with their, slaveholder as a body servant. Usually, and from my experience, in fact, that's just the case. Those pension records are kept at the state level. They are not kept by the National Archives. So you would then have to travel to whichever state it is that they apply for the pension. Some of these are already scanned and they're online and they're available for you for free. I've found them on Family Search. Just look around to see where those records are, and you may have to go to the state archives to get those. Just wanted to put that out there. We're mainly focusing on Union troops, not Confederates, because it actually wasn't really a country. I said that. Yes, I did. Okay. Moving on. How do you order a copy of the pension file?
Okay, first of all, you need to have an index. And
Okay.
with that pensioner's name, you then have an application number and a certificate number. And with those 2 numbers, you can then order a file through the National Archives, or you can get an independent researcher to go to the National Archives and to get that file for you.
Okay, so since we are so ahead of the curve and we know exactly what we're doing, I have an example. In fact, Ellen, you can speak to this particular soldier because you sent me the information. Here's an example of a pension card, and this is for Augustus Rodriguez. And can you tell us a little bit about Augustus?
Yeah, I was curious about the involvement of Puerto Ricans in the Civil War. And so I came across, there's actually some mention of this guy. There's a Wikipedia page on him and some other articles. So he apparently was born in San Juan and came to the United States sometime in the 1850s. And he volunteered. He became naturalized in Connecticut about 1861. And then he got married and he was drafted a year later. And he was with the 15th Connecticut Volunteer Infantry, which is really what's kind of ironic is just that it's also known as the Lion Regiment in honor of Nathaniel Lyon. So the first officer killed in the Civil War, but the Lion connection, I think of Teresa whenever I hear Lion. So he served for most of the war, and he actually got to be a lieutenant and a sergeant. And I requested the pension file so I could learn a little bit more from the documents and not just look at these kind of like people's interpretations or some of the facts they pull out of it. I wanted to learn a little bit more about it. There's about 3,500 Latinos that were in the Civil War. It's only about 2,500 in the Confederacy, 1,000 for the Union, and the numbers grew by the end of the war about 10,000. But as far as I know, I don't know if there's like an overlap with the USCT or if they were, Puerto Ricans of color who did participate, but with the USCT. I mean, that's a real question mark, and I haven't found a lot. I think it's a little bit difficult because the soldiers will be marked as coming from Spain rather than Puerto Rico, because that's it's a colony. So, or Cuban, the same thing.
I'm so glad she shared this angle, because typically nobody ever really talks about this. And to me, it also begs that there may be a project to find out how many people from Puerto Rico, from the Caribbean, actually served in the USCT potentially, and maybe just weren't marked that way. Or, I mean, there's a number of different things. And also, we may need to have like a rehash at some point when you actually find out what's in his file, because it's potentially it's going to differ from what we traditionally have seen of different files from stuff. So that's good. I'm gonna do the screen share again.
One thing, there were two women that served that I found out. They were both of Cuban descent. One was born in Cuba, the other in Florida. But one of them actually ran around as Lieutenant Harry Buford, and her husband didn't know that she served. And there's a photograph of her with a mustache in the outfit. So she enlisted like twice. She was on the side of the Confederacy. But I just found it amazing that she was discharged after they found out she was a woman. She went back, she re-enlisted, she fought at Shiloh, and then when they discovered her again, she became a spy.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Wait a minute. I got to show y'all this screenshot because Ellen sent me the picture, and
my gosh.
it is the guts, Lord, today.
Her
Oh
name
my
was
goodness.
Loretta Janetta Velasquez. She was born in 1942 and died in 1897.
Oh my gosh. She probably tried to get a pension, poor baby. And they said, no, you may not, because you.
Pull it up. I want to see her.
I want to see this.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, wow.
Is that her on the left?
Yes, that's her.
Yes.
With her Halloween mustache.
I love it.
Don't you love her?
That's hysterical.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
She did good.
I think she did a good job. I think she did a good job dressing herself up. And you know what? It's interesting. If you all listen to the Uncivil podcast that we've been suggesting to you all for the longest time, they actually had a episode where they talked about women who wanted to be Civil War reenactors and how they got, sort of banished from doing it because women didn't serve. And they took it to court and they won because of cases like her, where they said women, assumed male identities and served in the war, and it was proven, and they had, their receipts together. So there's a whole story. Matter of fact, I'm trying to understand why they haven't made a movie about women who were able to serve in the Civil War that folks just didn't think about. So yes, thank you so much, Ellen. Of course, she brought the color out tonight. All right, so I'm going to go back to this pension card because we want to make sure you're clear on what information you need to get when you're ordering the files. You'll see, right, Bernice talked about the application number. That's this first number in this column here, right after the term invalid, meaning, sick. They're applying for a pension. You'll see the date of filing here. For this one, for Augustus, it's looks like September 19th, 1872. And then you've got an application number of 177.991. And then you've got a certificate number of 125255. This means that the pension was granted when you see this certificate number. So don't use that as a deterrent if you don't see a certificate number and you see an application number. In fact, I would more likely order one that just has an application number, because that meant the person probably spent a lot of time trying to prove that they deserve to get a pension. And so don't rule that out. You also have additional things at the bottom. Pay attention as well. If you see an XC number down here, that means that the person lived long enough, or their beneficiaries lived long enough to where their pension was actually transferred to to Veterans Affairs, which means that you cannot get it from the National Archives. So keep that in mind when you're looking at information down here at the bottom. Also, let's go back. You'll also see at the bottom of the screen It's kind of obscured by the row of folks. When they died also is listed here at the bottom. This is not on every card, but you'll see here he died March 22nd, 1880 in New Haven, Connecticut. And of course, you know, he's in a northern area that had, you know, higher adherence to vital records. So you may have been able to find that elsewhere, but when you're in other spots of this, you know, of the country, this is vital information that you may not have been able to get elsewhere. Okay, so this is his record, and I think I'm gonna flip to another one. Yeah, I'm gonna flip to another one. Okay, so here's another example. We talked about the pension card, right? We talked about the application number. We talked about the certificate number. Here's just a screen basically showing you also what the corresponding service card or service file or muster card is for the same person. This is for Washington Cross. Angela just pulled this for me, like literally 2 weeks ago. And he is in a cavalry, not an infantry, right? Got to notice there's a difference between the two. His pension was filed in the state of Kentucky. You also have, and that's the thing, don't hate on these muster cards or service cards, because sometimes these things are super rich. They can tell you the former slaveholder here. If a person died, they had to issue their final settlement. So it could tell you when they died, how they died, if it was diarrhea, if they died from smallpox, if they died from whatever it is. That it may be further through the card. So don't rule that out. You get a description of the person. Here, Washington Cross was 37, so he was on the old end of soldiers, right? 5'10", dark complexion, black hair, black eyes, was born in Meade County, Kentucky, and he was listed as a farmer. I have never seen, and you all correct me if I'm wrong, I've never seen where it says occupation slave.
No.
I've never seen that on.
I've seen it. I've seen it maybe a couple times. Not a lot, but I have seen it before.
Okay, so it's not as prevalent.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is that. And let me get my window back. Here we go. All right, and then just as an example, and of course we have 1,000,001, and there's no way we can share every single pension file with you guys tonight because we'd be here for 3 years. This is just an example of one of the forms that is pretty standard in a lot of pension files. Are you married? If so, please state your wife's full name. They give the wife's full name and the maiden name, right? This is dated in 1898. So this is during that, crucial time period of the black holes, we call it, right? Where you don't have a census. You've got to rely on local records or other records. So then he also says, they ask, when were you married? They give the date. What record of the marriage exists? They talk about there's a license at the clerk's office. Were you previously married? So think about this. Let's say the soldier was married during the war, wife dies, he comes back, he gets remarried. They have to, of course, list that they had a previous wife. So in this case, both of his wives have the same name, Ellen. One was Ellen Fisher, the other one was Ellen Starks. Do you know the date of her death? They don't know, doesn't remember, but she died in this location. How many children do you have? I've got 4. In this case, all of his kids were grown. James Willis, John Henry, Jesse Mormon. I wonder where they got Mormon from. Edward Cross. Do not remember their ages, and most of their living absent, meaning that they're not at home anymore. But if they were younger and they could get that pension up until they were 16, they would say how old they were. All right. Anything else before we start moving into the Grand Army of the Republic stuff?
Well, you mentioned slavery, and I just want to say that you will find in many of the records former slave owners testifying on behalf of the claimant. And, we're always talking about slave era research and finding the last slave owner. The slave owner is there testifying. And when you talk about credibility, you look at these records and they actually have a rating by the examiner. And you can see the names of different people, and it will say good, fair, poor. And you can pretty much see if that person is white, they have higher credibility given to them with their testimony than someone that's black.
You're absolutely right. It's right there in the flesh. Fair, good. It'll say imbecile, Negro, fair to good, all there in the it's in the reputation column, which is right there.
One thing, Nika, I'd like to share. This is when you have to analyze just the information we have shared or that's been shown on records or in these databases. Folks need to go through and analyze every line, every piece of information that's in there and find out what's next or what could be next or what could be missing or what is that information telling you. Do the so what, do whatever you want to call it, and then what's next and start going for it. It's just an opportunity that I don't think we're doing as much as we should be doing when we're getting a piece of a pension record or even looking at that card. You know, what if there was other names on there? You got I heard you say the wife's maiden name. Shoot, there we go. Whole nother line to research. So just please take that opportunity to break down those records and analyze them and question what's on that document.
And not only that, but read every single piece of paper.
Every piece.
You may find you're reading something and that pensioner was rejected. And you may say, oh, shoot, he was rejected. Keep reading. Keep reading because they are constantly going back. They're constantly going back. You will find they may go back 3 and 4 times with additional information and proof before they get that final disposition. So read every single document that you get in the file. It's like, just think of it as a novel. And if you're reading a novel and it's really saying something you wanted to say, just keep reading and keep reading, because you're going to find the most interesting, heart-wrenching information in those files. I love them. I'm there almost every week pulling a file.
I was about to say, I think that's something that I liked. Angela suggested putting it in order of date. So that
date order.
Date order. And I actually like that because they may have written from one location at the beginning of their, thing. So you can, so you're establishing a timeline, right? So, okay, at the beginning when they first applied, they were living here, then they moved to a different location. So maybe when I go on site, if you watched last episode, when we advocated for that, you aren't going to look for them in this particular municipality, in the county or parish that they're living in. You're going to look somewhere else. And then as time went on, maybe they got more sick and the pension hadn't been approved. So they had to come and live with a child or another person. Maybe the person they wanted to deposition died, so they had to go to somebody else. I mean, these files are you can't even say, Ellen asked how thick they are. I literally have probably 10 sitting on my desk right now. This is one, but then I have another one that's this thick.
Yeah.
So it varies, but then, but then I've got ones that are tiny. It really varies. It's like, to me, it's almost like when a new database comes out and you don't know if your people are in it and you haven't searched it yet, but you're like waiting. And then when you put the name in, you're waiting for it to come back. And then you come back and you've got to read about diarrhea and all kinds of other kinds of funny, or crazy ailments that people would die from. Let's see. There was another question about the $300 sign-on bonus.
Yeah. That was from Neff.
I'm
trying to understand. She
mentioned, okay. When the U.S. colored troops as USCTs were recruited, in many places you'll see, in fact, if you just do a Google search and say USCT recruitment posters, you're going to get dozens. And you're going to see that many of them were offered, especially the soldiers in Kentucky, were offered $300 bounty to sign up. They became free. They would get this money. However, it is important to understand Kentucky was a border state, as was Maryland, as was Missouri. And those slave holders who were Union sympathizers, if they gave permission for Henry or Toby or whomever in the Union Army, then they, as the slaveholder, would get the bounty. Even if the soldier died, the family wouldn't get it, the slaveholder would. That is the reason why on fold 3, if you look at those service records, sometimes you'll see the name of the slaveholder, because the slaveholder, to prove that they owned the slave, would often include the receipt that they were given when they purchased that person as a slave, as their property. And which is another reason why when you see a service record, don't just look at the first 2 or 3 cards on those service cards. If they're 15 or 20, scroll all the way through, because sometimes there's a bill of sale right in that soldier's record, especially from Missouri, from Kentucky, from Maryland, from those border states. It's very important. And then secondly, I would agree with what Bernice was saying. If you deal with the rejected files, they went back again and again. One of my best files from my Amanda, that's how I ended up discovering that I was related to Melvin Collier. We all know Melvin through that file. She mentions that she remarried, and then she stayed married for 8 or 10 years until her second husband passed away, Pleasant Bar, and she talked about that. That file is one of the best files I have. Her sister testified on her behalf in 1914. She had been searching for her family for 50 years, from 1864 to 1914, still trying to get a pension from the first husband, because her second husband had passed away. She's still trying to now. She doesn't even know what unit he was in, which was why she was rejected and never got it. But that file, pages, and the sister who meets her explains why they haven't seen. She said, the men left that morning. We left that night. We got on the road. We walked from Ripley, Mississippi to Salisbury. She is describing her first moment of freedom. They're walking along a road they were never allowed to walk on before. These are the kinds of data that you get in a pension file, that it's like you're sitting down talking to them and they're talking to you from those pages. And this is a rejected file, one of the best files that I have.
And I've also seen these huge files with so much controversies, like reading Peyton Pilley's.
Right.
3 and 4
Contesting
wives
widows.
showing up. Yes. All of these wives, the mother stating that wasn't his wife. I don't know anything about her. Those are the files that can give you so much insight into what's going on in the community.
And you can also be crying while you read through.
You're crying. Yes,
Bernice,
absolutely.
you pulled one for me on Dr. David W. Cousins.
Yes.
And if you remember, his wife went crazy.
Yes.
And the whole medical stuff was all in there, back and forth about the asylum and her breakdown and all this stuff. And he's caring for her, but he wrote letters in this pension file, and they were in there. The letters where he's writing, trying to get his pension and stuff. It's amazing. It really is amazing. And it's just,
come on, Nika.
Was she pulling up?
Nika,
Pull it up.
come on, Nika.
Y'all know, because we gotta get to our GAR before we get to the Civil War After Dark, because y'all know I got a couple of them right here, because they're giving you the tea right now because they're telling you all the secret scandals and lies that are in the files. But wait until you have me read just a couple of the things that we have found in some of these files. So James, I want to give you the floor to talk about the history of GAR and why it's important when it comes to people of color genealogy research, because we did say we were going to talk about that this evening as well.
Oh, I'm here. Yeah, the GAR is very important. Again, we have to understand that things like the VFW that exist today, your veterans advocacy groups, they have a precursor and a predecessor in the GAR, which is, again, the Grand Army of the Republic. This is an organization that was established post-Civil War, and the GAR is for Union veterans, and it has since evolved into a lineage society, which is the Sons of Union Veterans. A lot of folks don't know, and maybe some folks do in the chat, I don't know, but if you don't, you're going to learn today that there are records that you can find on the GAR. And the Sons of Union Veterans have actually done a lot of work over the past few years to compile these records, okay? The GAR, again, is an advocacy group for soldiers. And this is an organization it's a fraternal organization, and they had what they call posts. It's the same thing as saying a lodge or a chapter, what have you, that were local, that had, they had district meetings and national meetings, what have you. And you can actually find these national meetings, these proceedings, that if you go back to the episode we talked about fraternal organizations, go back and watch that, and then you'll have a better understanding of how an organization like this will function. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen for you all. Let's see here. All right. And then, can you all see that?
Yeah, make sure you present to everyone so it takes up the whole screen, sweetheart.
I'm not presenting everyone? I thought I was.
No, you're not. Yeah, just click present to everyone.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, it goes slow a little bit. Yep. All right. Very good. All right. So this is their site. It's garrecords.org. Again, you see here where it is hosted by the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War, and they have been compiling these records for quite a long time. So real quickly, you see here what is a Grand Army of the Republic record? You see under the published records there, published records were routinely produced at the national and department levels of the GAR, but rarely by posts. Now, rarely doesn't mean that it never happened. I want to highlight that, okay? Business at the national and department levels was conducted at conventions, or also known as encampments, which were convened for only a few days each year, all right? Now, what you want to do when you go onto this site, you can either explore by state, which state are you researching, or you can go directly to the catalog if you want to skip past that. Can you all still see the index here? Mm-hmm. All right, very good. And you can go right here to the bottom and pick your state. So let's say I want to pick, well, see, they always want to go to Louisiana. I'm going to go to Alabama. That's my state, right?
We don't care about y'all.
Yeah, you know what? That's all right, though.
Well, you can always go to Michigan.
You know what? Yeah, I know. I'm going to go to Michigan. Now, Alabama, we got some work to do. I'm going to go to Michigan. Right?
I was about to say, because Alabama looking a little sparse.
Yeah, Alabama was sparse. Alabama was sparse. But again, you got to know what state you're doing. I just want to do Alabama to mess with Nika. But all right. Mm-hmm. So what they have done is they have compiled lists of where they know that there are collections of records for the GAR. Okay, you can go right here. You find a spreadsheet. They're nice enough to tell you the location. Here, for example, the archives of Michigan. They give you the address, and they let you know, what's this? The description of what they actually know is there, the content, etc. Okay, and it's going to be up to you to go in and contact this archive or what have you to find these records. Okay, but there's a but. There's a lot of these records actually have found their way online already. Okay. If you're not using Hathi Trust, I need you to get your life together. Okay. Because right here on Hathi Trust, let me go back to this record. Because there are a lot of very good. Because there are a lot of out of print books and whatnot, rare things. Wait, what's this? Right. The Journal of the 30th National Encampment of the Grand Army of the Republic, held in St. Paul, Minnesota, September 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, 1896. Now, I know somebody is out there wondering. Let me come back and come off of the screen share for a second. I know that there's somebody out there wondering, well, that sounds good, but we're black. The GAR, you had posts that would declare, a lot of them would declare when they first got their charter to establish a local post. Were they white only? Were they for Negroes? Or were they mixed? How many people knew that? I know I did when I first started doing this research. You did have some cases where you had GAR posts that actually were mixed race, and they would publicly announce it, whether it was in a newspaper or in these records. Okay, so just because you see one post, and sometimes you may see a post that says Frederick Douglass post. Now, if you think Frederick Douglass, you're going to assume there are black people in there, right? It's all black people, right? Not necessarily. So make sure that you're mindful of that when you're doing this. And again, the GAR members were advocating primarily, for themselves and things that were issues for them. I'm going to go back on screen share, and then I'm going to shut up. I want to make sure everyone else gets a chance on the floor here. Let me see here. 1 second. I'm sorry. All right. This is actually a relative of mine. I didn't mean to click this one, but I'll show it to you. This is actually a relative of mine named Littleberry Crawford Stewart. Okay, he served in 102nd USCT out of Michigan. And as he got older, he became a GAR member. And one of the things that I found in the records was that he was assigned within the organization to be a storyteller, to go to different county fairs and whatnot, to tell the stories of USCT soldiers. Yes, my cousin on this picture is a black man. Okay, and you see it when he gets older. So I want you to get an idea of what the what kind of issues that they were advocating for themselves. And let me see here. All right, so can y'all see that?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, so this is actually a preamble to a resolution that a GAR post was giving to Congress to basically to advocate for them to get an increase in pay. And I just want to read a little bit of it for you here. We, the colored people of Leavenworth City, County of Leavenworth, and the state of Kansas, in mass meeting assembled, do again reiterate our belief in the doctrine of Thomas Jefferson, delivered upon the occasion of his first inaugural address in D.C., equal and exact justice to all men of whatever state or persuasion, religious or political. And we believe that had the doctrine of Jefferson and the father of the republic been adhered to, slavery and involuntary servitude would have been driven from the land long before it became necessary for the illustrious Lincoln to have jeopardized his life in a cause for which the father of the republic had pledged their lives, their liberty, and their social honor. All right. Now, and this is just, so it sounds like very, very boisterous language, right? But when you get down to the bottom of it, the bottom of the resolution basically says, give us our money. And they sign, and each of the individual members are signing on to these type of things. So you see that how they're organizing and whatnot. And I'm quite sure Bernice, I'm sure Bernice probably chomping at the bit to get in here. You're probably gonna find out that, guess what? You may find a GAR record in a person's pension file, and I promise you, you'll find out that they had to prove that they actually served to be in the GAR as well. So again, finding those type of records is very, very, very important to understanding a USCT soldier's post-Civil War life. Okay, and because you're seeing them interact with other soldiers as well.
All right. Anything else you want to mention about this? In terms of, we've got records. There was a post in Lake Providence.
Yes, absolutely.
Also,
That's usually my
markers that were put near the graves, the headstones, the GAR.
Absolutely. And thank you, Angela. Again, organizations like these, they take them to their graves. Any type of fraternal organization, you got to make sure you check the cemeteries. You got to make sure you're checking. As you saw that clip, I apologize for not giving the citation. It was June 10th, 1890 from the Leavenworth Times, page 4. If anyone wants to go look at it, check your newspapers and just type in colored GAR or Grand Army Republic. You will find where they're not only doing advocating for themselves to get pensions or what have you, but they're also like I said with my relative, they're doing story time at church. They're parading through the streets during July 4th and whatnot. And particularly, this is really important, particularly for African descent soldiers. They're trying to keep the memory of what they did alive. Okay, there are many people who don't learn about, to this day, who don't learn that there were Black men and women who fought in the Civil War. Tonight was the first time I saw Puerto Rican and Cuban. They're trying to keep their stories alive. Okay, which I think is what we're trying to do here at BlackProGen as well. You got to keep the story alive.
All right, there's a question from the chat room that Marion asked, and she was wondering if the pension rate was lower for USCTs versus white veterans.
I can comment that just my great-grandfather, it took him first 40 years to get his pension. Second, he got $20 a month. When I look at my other ancestor of color, he got $12 a month. So yes, I saw a disparity. Someone else can chime on what they've seen. My part was 20 and 12.
Well, the pension record is based upon disability.
Yes.
And if they did not see them as being 100% disabled, then they didn't get the highest rate possible. The biggest problem for most of the soldiers was proving that the disability was related to the military service. Mm-hmm. That was a major problem. So that you will see in those files multiple medical visits, and each medical visit you would see them deteriorating. But I don't think I've ever seen one that said 100% disability. because to them, that person could do something. They could take a hoe and go out and dig up some land or something.
Well,
It
they don't
was
give
really
100%.
hard.
They don't give 100% now.
Yeah.
Well,
It's rare for you to get 100% now. And just to add to the conversation, this pension that I'm going to read the Civil War After Dark case about in a second, she was given $30 a month as a widow.
Wow. And you're correct,
Where
Bernice.
was it?
I wanted to
well,
hop
that's
in here for a minute. And I just wanted to say my third great grandfather in the 29th Connecticut Colored Troops, he was the only sergeant. And he actually petitioned for his pension, didn't get it. And then he basically met with a doctor from Black Greenwich who verified it. And then by the time he was awarded, he had already died.
Mm. Yeah. You find
And,
that.
and many of my ancestors in the 29th precinct, they were lied to. They said that they would get X amount of money and they didn't.
Yeah. Following up with Bernice while you're pulling that up, Nika, is the one that took 40 years to get his. It was medical, it was diarrhea, and probably 50 pages of the little bit over 100 were all those medical visits.
For diarrhea.
Still fighting 40 years.
Mhm.
But he
Lord,
got
I'm trying to-
$20. Yeah. And then he died 2 years after he got it.
Yeah.
I just want to give him some coconut water.
That,
Also, understand that the pension rates were also officially raised from time to time. And that was something that actually went through Congress. It was just like, okay, at this point, we're going to raise the pension to, $12. Oh, it's now going to be $20. If you have ancestors who lived well into, let's say, the 1920s or 30s, they were getting $50 a month. So you'll see that every few years, because as the population of soldiers, well, of course, many were dying, most were dying, but obviously the longer they lived, the more infirmed they were. And definitely their inability to work had increased the older that they were as well. Or for the widow as well. She may have gotten an increase because of her age and her own frailty at that point.
Yeah, I was just about to say that is true. You'll usually see in the file, there's like a form where they talk about how much they get paid per month. You'll see it written and they'll say, and as an act of Congress on this particular day. So that'll let you know that. And then they also had attorneys working on their behalf. So you have to imagine how much money they had to pay out to these people to represent them. I've seen in files, matter of fact, the one that Angela got me, it was just all kinds of stuff going on with that one. They had an attorney and the man, he killed somebody and went to jail for life. and so the case was not followed up on because the man had went to jail because he had killed somebody. And I was like, what kind of lawyer are you killing people? It was a little crazy. It was a little crazy. Anything else? Yeah, and the attorney's taking money. I've seen that, right?
Yes, especially for the widows.
Yes.
They're ripping them off too.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, totally ripping them off. And okay, so do we have anything else before I start getting into our salacious after dark? Do we need to turn our lights down for this? Because Angela wants me to read from Mary's file.
I'm just saying.
Hey, Nika, real quick. I just wanted to show everybody my cousin Littleberry again. This is him as an older man, and this is actually a photo of him actually out at a fair. Basically telling stories about USCT, and so you do. But here's the thing. Guess where this photo came from? It came from Bernice. Where'd it come from? Pension file. It came from a pension file. Bernice, you supposed to.
I see his medal. I see his. Is that his GAR medal?
Yeah,
yep, exactly.
Yeah, it looks nice.
Cool.
All right, so are we ready? I'm going to put on my pension after dark voice. Because we want to give you an example of some of the crazy things that you'll find in pension files. Let me get my NPR
Clutch your
on.
pearls.
Yeah, you clutch all pearls right now. Clutch all pearls. To the Honorable, the Judge of the 9th Judicial District Court holding sessions in and for the parish of East Carroll, state of Louisiana. The petition of Mary Diggs, resident of your parish and state, also the lawful wife of Isaac Jackson, with respect shows that she was lawfully married to one Isaac Jackson on October 1st, 1872, which fact is fully shown by reference to the duly certified copy of the marriage license annexed hereto and made part hereof. That she peaceably and lawfully in the relation of man and wife with the said Isaac Jackson until the month of October in the year of 1879. This is 7 years later. That at this time, the said Isaac Jackson, her husband, deserted her and lived in open concubinage with one Lizzie Spriggs, his respondent, in adultery. That no separation from bed or board or divorce was ever dued out and decreed between them, and that the cohabitation of her said husband with the said Lizzie Spriggs was an open act, well known to her and against her rights and wishes, the same having taken place in that part of the parish which is commonly called the island. I feel like I'm talking about Staten Island. She over there in the island. Or he over there in the island with Lizzie. That the said Isaac Jackson further deserted her by leaving this parish and stayed in company with said respondent, having ostensibly for his destination some point, Bolivar County, Mississippi, that in her belief he is still living in adultery with the said respondent. Your petitioner further shows that because of the shameful conduct of her said husband and the dishonor he has cast upon her name, and because of his flagrant violation of all his duties and obligations in his marital relation to her, she deserves a separation from said Isaac Jackson, a vernacular matrimony. Wherefore, the premises considered for your petitioner prays that she be authorized to institute and prosecute this action and to stand in judgment herein, that the said Isaac Jackson, being absent from the state, a curator ad hoc be appointed to defend this suit and represent the interests of that said absentee, and that after due proceedings had, there be a final judgment here in her favor against said defendant, decreeing a divorce between them, dissolving forever the bonds of matrimony. And here's the kicker. Isaac Jackson wasn't even the pensioner. That was her second husband. She had to get this order done. Come on, isn't that juicy? That is juicy. She had to get this done so that she could apply for her first husband's pension.
Let me say something. The whole time, all this time, I was sitting here thinking every time we said Isaac Jackson, I was like, let a player play. And then I realized when you said that, now I'm like, oh, she was playing the player. Okay.
I had to call Nika and say, oh my God, I'm on my way from the archives. And said, you've got to hear this. Oh my goodness!
It was
feeling like a pimp going
living in open. Yes, he was living in. He was living in open concubinage. So she had to get this divorce, and he was absent in order for her to be able to apply for her previous husband's pension. What is crazy in this case is that the husband actually deserted during the war, came back to Lake Providence. I actually have timed it to right around when they had a child who died.
Oh, wow.
And so he came back.
But was it his child?
Yes, because the child was like 2 or 3 years old. So so he got in trouble for deserting. Man went back and died in the war.
Wow.
You know what? I have a homework assignment for all the BlackProGen viewers out there. The homework assignment is before the next episode is to use the phrase open concubinage at least once between now and the next episode.
That was a legal brief. It was typed. It was together. Open concubinage.
I need you to tweet it or comment it or hashtag it something. I need something. I don't know. I'm gonna give you something. I don't know what I'm gonna give you yet. But I'm gonna figure that out.
Yes. Now this one's a little bit more sordid. You really gonna have to clutch your pearls on this one. This is October 26, 1899 at New Barren in the Cherokee Nation, Indian Territory. This is by John B.H. Gritz, Indian name Kananoliska, who attests that he remembers that the pensioner has sore eyes, but then he goes on to talk about how the man got the clap.
Wait, what year? What year they calling it the clap? That's the 50s, 60s term. That was back in the 1800s. Are you kidding? Oh my God.
Wait a minute, I gotta read it to y'all because we got to give Rab his due. Because Angela read this. See, I always have Angela get the files where they're juicy like this. I don't know how she makes it in the archives without laughing, because I would be in there chuckling. So here goes the question, right? So they say, did he have any venereal diseases while in service? They're going to true her fan. Yes.
The Civil War one at that.
She looked like she got the whole fan with
You know I collect fans. I got the Civil War one out tonight.
so they say, did he have any venereal diseases while in service? Yes, he has some kind of bad disorder while we were at Salt Lick making salt. The nature of the disease was clap. They literally have it in quotation marks. Well, I don't know either. I know he has sores on the head of his penis. This is literally in the file, you guys.
You do know this is somebody's like great grandfather y'all talking about right here, right?
I ain't done.
I claim him.
So you're like, why do you know that he has sores on his penis? Yes, I saw his penis while it had sores on it. I made some tea from herbs while it and gave it to him to put on the sores. He paid me $7 for treating his penis. Yes, the tea I made cured the sores on his penis. I think the surgeon gave him something to put on his penis, but it didn't do any good. Yes, he told me he contracted the disease. What it was from having sexual intercourse with some women. I don't know whether the disease was gonorrhea or syphilis. I know the sores on his penis and discharged us. There was several sores on the head of his penis. I don't know how long his penis had the sores, but I first knew of it. I know it was while we were at Salt Lick making salt about the time. This was in a pension file.
His penis was in a pension file?
His penis was in a pension file.
Listen.
They mentioned that word a whole bunch of times.
The fact that he had something or whatever, this is a medical diagnosis, right? That don't trip me out as much as the fact that, especially unique with your voice, you like, she's like, I made some tea. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure you did. I'm sure
it was a guy. It was his bunkmate.
Oh, it was his bunkmate that made the tea.
Yes.
It was a man.
Yes.
It's a cure.
Y'all ain't gonna have me late to work tomorrow. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Cause y'all know. Look, I promised myself I was gonna behave tonight, and y'all making it very difficult for me to behave myself.
I must have thought that was the nurse talking or something. Who did you think that was?
Think about how much money he had to use. That was $7 in the Civil War. You guys, that was a lot of money.
I'm just trying to. Never mind. What neighborhood was he going to where he had it multiple times?
I don't know. This is what his comrade in the 2nd Indian Home Guards, this is what and my whole thing is, what did the clap have to do with him going blind? Because that's what happened. Well, I mean, eventually I guess it could make you go blind, but he was claiming that his injury was caused because dust flew up into his eyes. He wasn't saying that because he was out there being debaucherous that's what happened. But but they asked the man the question.
If my friend, I don't care what the situation is, right? This is just guy code. If my friend happened to know that I had something, you don't go tell. That's like snitching.
He told the picture board. And FYI, he was married when that happened.
Wow.
Anything else before we get into Ask
Mariah?
Let's just ask Mariah how we fix all this.
Well, I just wanted to show you guys. Yes, I just wanted to show you all the crazy. Remember Bernice said that it's juicy. It's like Peyton Place. And amongst the clap conversations, there was a deposition from his former slaveholder saying that he was a former slaveholder and that, he ran away to enlist in the army. I mean, this was a very juicy file, but you won't find it unless you order it.
I'm just hoping he didn't get the clap from Mariah. Good Lord.
You know what? Mariah is pure. We are not going to give that to Mariah.
I don't trust anybody now. I trust nobody.
Oh, my Lord. Oh my
I
Lord.
ain't got nothing to say. Let me.
Marion said debaucherous and concubinage are the words of the day. You're absolutely right. Those are your vocabulary words for the day. And now's the time
Open
for your favorite part of
concubinage.
the show. Open concubinage. Now's the time for your favorite part of the show. Ask Mariah. This is the part where you, the viewers, submit your questions, queries, and conundrums and more to the panel, and we weigh in live with research help specifically geared towards you. Panelists never see the queries beforehand, so you get a chance to see us work together live to help our Genia Buds get past their brick walls. All right, today's query is from Matthew. I'm not going to attempt to say his name because I will probably butcher it, but that's all right. Matthew, I'm trying to trace my ancestor, Milton Robinson. According to the 1900 census in Dallas County, Alabama, he was born about 1850 and he's from Georgia. His wife was Ann Taylor, or Oliver, on the 1884 marriage record in Dallas County, Alabama. I tried looking for him in 1870 and 1880 census records, but there's no way of knowing if I'm looking at the right Milton Robinson or not. Oh, that's Matthew in the chat room. Okay. So our Ask Mariah is in the chat room. All right, so he says he's trying to trace his ancestor, Milton Robinson, according to the 1900 census in Dallas County, Alabama. I know you guys are pulling that up now, so you can look for clues. I see you're looking for it, faces, uh, panel. He was born about 1850, and he's from Georgia. His wife, Ann Taylor, or Oliver, on the 1884 marriage record in Dallas County, Alabama. Tried looking for him in 1870, 1880, but there's no way of knowing he is looking at the right Milton Robinson. All right, next slide. He found Milton Robinson in an 1870 census in Georgia, living with the Tate. He found a Milton Robinson, so we don't know if this is the right one. Living in Georgia in 1870, living with the Tates. I found another Milton Robinson in 1880, living with what appears to be another wife and some of his siblings in Dallas County, Alabama. I'm not sure if these point to my Milton Robinson because they are either there are other Milton Robinsons living around the same time period in Georgia and Alabama. So he's not sure if either of these is the right Milton Robinson. Okay, last slide. How can I tell which records refer to my Milton Robinson? Because I don't want to climb the wrong tree. I want to trace Milton because I want to find his parents and eventually his potential slaveholders. So the records he's found so far: 1900 census, Dallas County, Alabama; 1884 marriage record, Dallas County, Alabama. He's taken Ancestry DNA and 23andMe. All right, panel. What are your suggestions or questions? First one I have is, when was Milton born? Has anybody pulled up that 1900 yet? So we can get that question answered.
I was about to get it.
Yeah, I am too.
Okay.
Or Matthew can say something in the chat room.
Yes, since he's here.
Right.
Did he move his wife again?
Let's see.
He was born in 1850. That was on the first slide.
Okay.
And do you know if Milton had any siblings?
All right. Oh, all right. So I have the 1900 up. You want me to screen share it, Nika?
Yes, you can.
All right. Fix my window.
Make it large. Blow it up, please.
Yeah, no
You
problem.
know,
I got you.
Angela
I got you covered.
Yeah, we need it all on big.
No problem.
The aunties.
Yeah, about to say the
Right.
aunties need a big.
Right. All right. Here we go. Screen share. Y'all see it?
Nope, not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Where'd it
So-
go?
You don't see it?
Okay. Yep.
There we go. Okay. All right, so
Move it
we've
up.
got Milton and wife. Okay. We've got allegedly age 18 at first marriage, but that's the first thing that sticks out to me, is that there's a 26-year time or 24-year time difference in age, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's an age gap, which usually for me, that indicates that the man may have had a previous family.
Right.
Yeah, could have been previous marriage too.
Previous family and marriage.
Mhm.
And what else? Okay, so the kids' ages are pretty close together.
Yeah.
There's no gaps.
Looks like
there.
Ellen's pulled up some stuff too. The marriage.
Okay. The marriage. Okay. Well, I'll grab that so I can screenshot that.
I'm interested. Okay, so they're farmers. Okay.
Matthew says that he found Milton Robinson with Josephine Robinson as a sister, and he was also a widow when he married Anne.
What? And this is from a marriage record in Dallas County.
Where did you see that, Matthew, where you said you found Milton with Josephine, the sister?
I've got the marriage license here.
Yeah, I just
from
found it too.
1884.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Pull that up. Let's see.
Yeah, let me pull that up as well. James, is there anything that sticks out to you when it comes to that census record on those columns, towards the back?
Yeah.
There's that name Oliver.
Yeah, the thing that sticks out to me, because I looked at the marriage certificates like you did. I'm like, why are there two different last names for his wife? That's something that kind of stuck out to me a little bit. I was looking at these names here, and I'm wondering if any of them could be family names or not. I'm not as familiar with this area of Alabama.
Alex,
was that her first marriage or second? When you said two names.
Well, that's the question.
Yeah, that's the question. I don't think we know, because this marriage license does say Milton is a widower and is about 30. So that's here. So that hypothesis that, he probably had a previous marriage.
We also have her mother.
Mother Sally. Yes. Has consented to marriage. So, because she's age 20?
Right.
Okay. And that's the bottom. Well, this is blank below this consent down here, but
no, I'm talking about for the mother to consent, and she's 20 years old.
and she's 20 years old. That's a little odd.
I'd look up that law, Matthew.
Yeah, look up the law regarding age of marriage and why they would need her mother to consent. And then here's the other piece. They didn't actually fill out that part at the bottom, right? Even though she technically consented. So, I mean, it may have been a mistake. We don't know. Let's see. He mentions in the chat that, let's see. He is...
The Freedmen Bank is the first one.
Yeah, Freedmen Bank record 1873. That is my, but I don't know if that's my Milton Robinson. Anne's parents are Sally Lundy and Oliver Taylor. Sally Lundy was married to a Moses Lundy, so it looks like she may have gone by potentially, I guess, is it two names or what? I'm not sure.
Died.
Yeah, I'm not sure I get that. Is Lundy her maiden name?
It's her mother's name.
Because that's she married a Moses Lundy.
Her mother married a Lundy, not Anne. So that's just additional stuff. So he's just recounting that he's traced Anne's family, trying to find her or trying to find Milton, and I don't think it's really led to any fruit for him.
So I have a question for him. Matthew, have you charted out the ones that you think are your or could possibly be your Milton Robinsons and charted each of them out and sat back and looked at them and figured out who best fits your scenario, and then follow that one at a time and try to do a process of elimination? Because some will be eliminated because just because they got the same name, it might be in the same location. It could still be different ones. So my suggestion would be to actually just do a family group sheet or put it up on the wall, whatever way you want to be able to see these 3 or 4 Milton Robinsons, and work on the information that you have for each of them and try to resolve which one could be yours. And you might have to come further into the future if you can, and then go back to try to eliminate people. If that makes sense to everybody.
And I was going to ask if he had triangulated or researched some of his autosomal matches.
If he knows how to triangulate. There's another...
I was going to say, if he took Ancestry, did he just search for cousins with that surname, maybe in the same location?
And he could
at this point, Yeah, I was gonna say that's kind of a crapshoot because he just knows
Yeah.
Georgia. He doesn't know a county, but then he knows once he got to Alabama, he was living in Selma. So unless somebody's got that, you know what I mean, to try to go back, it's a little bit more of a challenge unless they know a little bit more than he does. But it's
Right.
still, I think it's still a good, it's not a
He said he
crapshoot.
did it.
Okay.
He
He
said he
said
did it.
He said he tried them all. Okay. There was someone brought up a Freedmen's Bureau record. And I think it was him.
Yeah,
There's something
said
that he
he
looked
had
at.
one.
I'll share that. He's not entirely sure that these are the right people.
Freeman's
This is
Bank.
in
Okay.
Freedmen's Bank. Sorry. This is in Augusta, Georgia.
Uh-huh.
And it
So,
lists
so
Milton
my
Robinson.
question to him is, what makes him think that's not his? Give me
Mhm.
3 reasons why it's not,
Yeah. And
and
he's
then
got
set it aside and go on to the next one.
yeah. And look at this. It
Awesome.
mentions a separation from a wife.
And uncles, I like that.
Yeah. Uncles,
Brothers,
parents.
and there's the Josephine.
Does he have any document on his Milton that has a signature? Because if you scroll up, you bring that document up.
Right.
You can see that this person signed his name. So he was a literate man. Was a man who could read and write.
Right.
Do you know that about his degree of literacy? Census records frequently reflect that.
The 1900 census said, I think, said he couldn't read or write in the 1900 census. When I'll go back and look at it, but I think it said he couldn't read or write.
Somebody gave a mark on that marriage certificate, though. Whoever, remember, there was a mark. Yeah, that mark
on the right-hand side.
It was I was gonna say it is the Alex Scott. It's the looks like the security person.
Oh, right.
Right here.
Right, that's true.
Oh.
That's not, yeah.
Okay.
So
I'm not
what
seeing
else?
any
Does he have any
signature from him.
Now here's my question. Here's my question for him. Has he? I don't know where our submitter lives, but have they gone local? Have they actually traveled?
That was my next question.
Down to the last place we know where this person was to check the courthouse and whatnot, find contact relatives locally. Have they done that?
The Black Belt, the Selma Dallas Public Library probably has a lot of information on the African Americans down there, and then they have their own. The Black Belt has their own OGS chapter too. That's who is that we know? That's BJ's area.
Smothers.
Yeah, BJ Smothers. So that area has a lot of documentation. She does have a lot already online, but when it comes to Alabama, like me and James know, we know that you have to be on site to get that nitty gritty there, because there's stuff in that courthouse that you really are not going to get at the archives just as of yet. They're just still transcribing and digitalizing daily. So it's worth going down there.
Is there any church affiliation that comes up with? And also all those names that were on that document you pulled up. Nika, I mentioned in our chat that, he could start building family groups. You saw uncle, you saw different names associated, and start trying to build those family groups and see how they might connect back. Because, it might not be something direct that gets him to know which one of those Miltons are correct. It could be something indirect.
Now, one thing I want to. Can you hear me? Oh, one thing.
We can.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. The little icon was going back and forth. One thing I want to say: if you're black and you're researching Alabama, and my sister True knows this, we're a small secret society of black people in Alabama researching Alabama history, right? If you don't have this book here, Researching African American Genealogy in Alabama by Frazine Taylor. I need you to get this book. All right, that's another homework assignment for our submitter tonight. If you don't have it, make sure you get it.
And I keep my heritage book that I get off that website. I got to look that up, but this is like already at volume 6 for the heritage of Bullitt County, Alabama, and there is one for Dallas County, which is that Selma area, that Black Belt. They have a book like this too that I use as reference to find my relatives. There's fan work in there, all the churches, everything that happened in Dallas County from when that county was started. So you can get these heritage books offline, or Interloan Library, probably from your library. You can ask them to get that for you. It's just a lot in that area that's just hidden gems. Like this one is a book from World War II, but it's just there in Bullitt County. You would have to go to Bullitt County to get this book. It's not at the archives or anything. It's just at the library. So
something that I think a lot of people don't think about doing, and I do this a lot, is when I can't find one person in one census. Yeah, when I find them in one and I can't find them in the one previous, I will start looking for the neighbors in that previous census,
the fans.
just to scan the neighborhood to see if there's anybody who might be connected to those folks. And so, you know, that's just looking at who are the neighbors. You know, are the people still in the same location? When you look at this 1900 census record, he's got a 60-year-old man living next door to him. I found him on the 1880 census, and I would suggest looking potentially in that particular area to see if some of those names and some of those family members or neighbors repeat. And then that way you know, at least instead of saying, oh, well, I've got to look through 25 different, you know, enumeration districts, I can then just focus on one and see if there's anybody. Okay, so this is how I know these are the right people. Let me just game you up. Let me just game you up right quick. Okay. So, right, we pulled up this 1900. Okay. We've got Milton. We know this is the right Milton. We know this is the right Ann, right? I'm looking at other things. I'm not just, you know, don't close off your research to where you're only paying attention to that, like a quarter of the page. You care about this entire image, everything that's on it. Okay. So don't just pay attention to this. You need to pay attention to everything else. So you see he's renting his farm. You got literacy, can't read, can't write. So that's something you need to pay attention to. Kids are in school, right? You've got Georgia across the board for his parents, XYZ. Okay. So we've got all of our information. We've distilled it here. Notice next door is Ned Singleton. He's 60 years old. He's 10 years older than him, right? He's got a wife named Fanny. So since we can't find Milton on the 1880 census, I looked for Ned and I found Ned. And here's Ned. And you're like, okay, well, I don't see, right? Where here's a Mitchell, a Davis, right? Grayson, a Roberson is living a couple doors down. Here's another Singleton. But if you flip to the next page, the Lundys are on the next page.
Here we go.
So the reason why I'm saying this is there are 22 pages that are a part of this enumeration district. It's not even Selma. It's called Richmond. Scan these pages to see if there are any smoking guns here for people, right? Because if we go back to 1900, you'll see other Richardsons, you'll see Lindsay's, right? I would suggest go through this entire district in 1900 to see if you can find other Robinsons. But look at it's even Roberson here. So maybe you're not looking for the right last name. Maybe you all go by Robinson, but it's actually Roberson.
The sound
or pronounced Roberson.
Pronounced, yeah.
It
or
sounds
pronounced.
Similar. Yeah.
Right? Look at this. Moles Roberson here. Living right by Ned Singleton.
Yeah.
Ned Singleton is right next to Milton Roberson or Robertson on 1900.
What is that?
Okay.
Nika, what is the written thing down? What color is that?
Shelly, you're can you mute and unmute yourself because you're sounding like you're in Star Wars. What are you asking?
Asking what is written next to the male female.
Oh, that's unknown for the month of birth.
Okay.
One thing I'll say is I think it's interesting that you see we have someone with the first initial M and then Roberson or Robinson or what have you in one census, and it's the same. It's like that's kind of eerie to me.
To me, I don't think it's a coincidence.
Me neither.
You're right.
I don't think you can rule out that Mose is connected to Milton.
Mhm.
And
Right.
he's 65 in 1880. So this could be a grandfather. It could be, so I would work this lead for this Mose
Yeah.
person.
Right.
He's
And you
also-
have to consider the fact, and we don't talk about it as much, but we have to consider the possibility that this could be a situation, and I'm just speculating, but it could be a situation where the family may have been separated in slavery or what have you, and they hook back up, or I mean, you just never know with that time period. People move for reasons that we don't really take into account as much as we should today.
Yeah, and I also think we. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Angela.
No. Go ahead.
The other thing I need to say is, yes, you've got Georgia, but why are you going? That's like, okay, I'm gonna get on a plane. I'm gonna go to Georgia. Where are you going, Georgia? I don't know. That's
Right.
basically what you're doing with this by trying to throw a frisbee and see where it lands. You need to really work this community. So go through page by page on that 1900, locate anybody with Roberson, and you want to trace those people forward, right? Because they may name their kids other things. You want to do that. You also want to go back through this 1880, look at that community in Richmond, right? Which is not Selma. Go page by page, see any other Robersons, trace them to forward, because he may be hiding in a household with someone else who's a relative, and they may have given him the wrong last name. Have you just looked for Miltons, people with the first name Milton, in that
That's
particular
Nettie
area?
rule. That's right.
Yeah. Have you?
Also,
Go ahead.
oh, sorry. No, I was just going to throw out. I have found 2 Milton Robinsons in the U.S. Colored Troops. There are probably more. My computer is slow. Don't forget. I mean, just look. You just never know. Ages are approximate anyway. You might say, well, he was born around 1850. He's too young. Ages are approximate. Remember that. And always give yourself a little wiggle room, 5 years in each direction. So, anyway.
I'm trying to make out this. There's a granddaughter named Mary living with this Mose Roberson. And yeah, that's the thing. Matthew, stop with this Freedmen's Bureau, because we don't care about nothing beyond 1900 and 1880 right now. We don't care about none of that, because here's the thing. This is the same. This is the same. You're jumping back and forth. Yeah. You can't. This is the same thing that I always tell people. Stop trying to find the famous relative and trace to forward to you. Right? Trace your line, and if you see a connection going from you backwards, then great. Instead of going from them trying to find their descendants. No, you're doing the exact same thing when you do that with this, when you're trying to jump through the potential records. Don't do that. He said, okay, I'll stop.
I know. I felt bad for a moment when I saw that. He said, okay, I'll stop. I would suggest that he, and of course y'all know what I'm going to say, he's got to some kind of way organize this search, because he's looking at so much stuff. Do a timeline. And if you don't know how, call me. I will walk you through it, because you need to do it and do it right, so you can get this point to be able to keep track of what you're doing, because you're kind of all over. So let's hone it in and go specific. And again, you've got 3 surnames here now, and you've already been searching them. But again, you're going to have to take one and follow it all the way through. And if it doesn't work out, set it aside and go to the next one. But you got to get it kind of organized and track those children too. And you can set up a separate line for them. It doesn't have to be on the same one.
Let me go ahead and interject. I'm going to interject something too, because we're going to talk about this until people start doing it. Go on ahead and take yourself over to this catalog.
Yeah.
I'm going to need you to do that right now. We're going to put in Dallas County, Alabama.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to do this. Oh, look at all this stuff. Go over to land and property. Go down to these deed records. I'm going to need you to go through these indexes and sales. Look at this. There is no key on this image. That means it is free. They are available and free at your house right now. I need you to be looking through all. Matter of fact, Don't even start up that early. I'm gonna need you to get to these indexes. You need to be looking right here, number 10. That's the first one you need to look at. Why? Because you found him in that county in 1900, and you want to see if he had any transactions. Did he buy a horse? Did he buy land? Did he buy property? Maybe he had a labor contract or supplies contract. You're going to look in this index. You're going to document any Roberson you can find. This is free. Free, free, free. There's no key right here. That means that this is free.
Mhm.
Okay. And then you're going to go back and back and back. Look at all these deeds for a number of years. And that's just the deed records. Go through any of these records you can find that they have available. Court records. Doesn't matter what it is. Probate. Whatever it is. This stuff is free.
Yep.
That's on Family Search.
Yep. Hey, I found something on Milton Robertson. I'm assuming that he has this already, but in case he doesn't, there is a selected non-population schedule for Milton Robinson, 1880 as a record. So I just wanted to make sure I put that out there as well, where it talks about, again, he was a farmer, so we have to think, what matter of fact, that might be an episode.
And
I don't know.
has he looked for land? Has he looked for homesteading records?
Yeah, I asked that earlier. Wait, he was born in 1850?
Farmer, not farm laborer. He's a farmer.
Yeah, he's a farmer, which means that he's over his own jurisdiction. He's born between 1850 and 1854. I think that was the range.
So how do we know if he's a slave or free, or because he went forward?
I don't know.
Because you're talking about 1850, 1854. I don't do Alabama, but my question would be, how many free coloreds were in Dallas County? And then go find out if he was there in 1850 and 1860.
But we're not even there yet in the research, so we haven't found
I thought he got, wait, he missed him. He didn't even get to 1870, right?
He didn't get to 1870 or 80. We're trying to get back to that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it ain't time for that yet.
No, it ain't time for that. No, don't be giving him bright shiny objects. He needs to be
set it aside because you got to
be on them deed books. That's where he needs to be, and he needs to comb those 2 enumeration districts. That's his homework.
But he was a renter, and it said that in one of the census y'all had.
1900. Yes, it did.
But here's the question.
So he's 50 years old.
And he was renting. Shannon said he was renting in 1880 as well.
Y'all dancing around something right now. Who was he renting from?
What you said.
Right.
Oh, that's a good one. That's gonna might drop you back for that 1870.
What you said.
Yeah, Shannon found some records in the chat room too.
Huh?
Shannon found some records in the chat room for him.
Well, that's the same thing that James just came across, which was that non-population census schedule or the agricultural, and it said that he was renting property. But yet and still again, go through the deed records to see if he was sharecropping from somebody else and who it was.
And his response in the chat room, he said, I've seen that.
He's seen that.
So I'm going to come back at him with my teacher hat on. What did you see and what did you do? So clock that. You stop laughing at me, Teresa.
It's true.
To me, he doesn't. I think he's been doing good research. Isn't very organized so that he can plot out his next steps. And I think the online environment, unfortunately, unless people are keeping trees and they're sort of diligent about how they're taking the steps, you don't know. You know what I mean? That you just can't fit, certain pieces don't fit into a certain puzzle, or that you need to sort of do workaround. So I think right timeline, you need to literally place where he is by date, location. You need to go through those 2 enumeration districts, look for Ned Singleton 1880, and there's a Bose Robertson living right by him. Comb that whole district in 1900 and 1880. Go to those indexed records for the deeds. That stuff is online for free. Angela talked about U.S. Color Troop records that she found for people. I mean, you've got 175 leads before you jump on a plane and go to Georgia and you don't know where you're going.
And I was just going to add that Ned is short for Edward, so that could be a clue as well.
Well, Ned isn't his relative. That's just a neighbor at this point. So we don't know. All right, you got homework. We expect to report back in 2 weeks.
Bam.
Absolutely.
We get attached to your people, and sometimes people's relatives really resonate with the panel, and they don't know how to let go, and they continue to work your case, like Mr. James Morgan does quite often.
Yeah.
Several people.
I
Do
literally went down to Texas and had to get Neff Hawthorne stuff. And hey, look, Neff is in the chat. Neff, I done sent I done sent you like 2 or 3 emails full of files. Did I not? We come through. We might not be on time, but we come through.
James, was he a Mason? James, was this guy a Mason?
No, he wasn't. But the funny thing was, he got the pastor that married him was a deputy grand master for Texas that like a few weeks after the wedding got shot. So it was like, what, it was interesting. It was interesting. Yeah.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yep.
Good job, folks.
Very
good
good
interaction
job.
in the chat room.
Yes. Agree. All right. Well, do you have a research brick wall? Would you like help from BlackProGen scaling that wall? Submit your query today for Ask Mariah segment. The link is in the description of each and every episode of BlackProGen Live. Remember to be specific. Tell us everything you've searched so we don't duplicate efforts if you get selected, and cross your fingers when you press submit. You just may get chosen for one of our upcoming episodes. All right, going through current events quickly because we are already at 2 hours, people. Tuscaloosa civil rights artifact found. Film and rare photo of Martin Luther King Jr. The appearance followed King's recommendation that Rogers take over the church. I'm not sure who Rogers is, but Tuscaloosa resident Edward Jenkins, who lives at the 16th Street near Central High School, took this photo March 9th, 1964, as one of the few Black photographers to document the local movement. The group also discovered a short film taken during Bloody Tuesday on June 9th, 1964, when civil rights activists attempted to march from First African Baptist Church to the newly built Tuscaloosa County Courthouse in a protest against its inclusion of whites-only signs. This film is also available via the TASS website. And so apparently it's just new ephemera when it comes to Martin Luther King Jr. All right. Second piece of current events. When you first walk into the hospital, you can see a doctor walk up to a counter in a room that sounds like this. The person at the desk asks you a bunch of questions like who's paying your bill, where'd you come from, your date of birth. Truro Infirmary has been collecting the same information for 150 years. The hospital was built in 1852, first called the Hebrew Hospital by businessman Judah Truro. The hospital was originally located in the warehouse district on the river. Today it is on Puritania Street. This leather-bound book was 2 feet long, 22 inches high, and 14 inches wide. The first registry is from 1855 to 1860, which contains all the information about a patient from those years. It only had 28 beds, but 45% of its patients were enslaved.
Whoa. And where is this from? Wow.
This is Truro Infirmary in New Orleans.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
So this is the first admission book. Registry has a level of detail like no other. Later records are for working class and even celebrities. Occupations like apothecary, jeweler, charcoaler, glazer, planter from Point Coupee Parish. Let's see. Pre-Civil War records include enslaved people. They are more likely to survive than other patients. So that is there. And this is a podcast that talks about this record book. And I wonder if my folks are in here too, because I got some Truro Infirmary folks. So I saw Bernice put that in the chat. All right, last but not least, final stipulation to end a lawsuit over a burial ground believed to contain the remains of early Black and Native American residents of Greenwich has been finalized. The conceptual plan will go to Superior Court in Stanford in the coming weeks for formal approval. 3 main parties involved: the homeowners whose property adjoins the cemetery, the town of Greenwich, and the descendants of the people buried there, all signed off on a negotiated deal late last week. The parties have been working through discussions to commemorate, preserve, and honor a small section of the burial ground known historically as the Colored Cemetery below the larger Byram Cemetery. The issues of property rights of nearby homeowners were also factored in. And of course, we had to share this news because this speaks of the cemetery issue that Teresa has been dealing with for a bit, and it seems like it has come to a close.
And I want to thank you to my BlackProGen peeps, because this is the one place that has kept me sane in these past 8 months. So I thank you. I also did my own blog post where I spilled the tea. So hopefully the next couple of years will bring it, and my ancestors can go back into resting in peace, and we can move forward and tell their real lived story. So I want to say I love y'all. Thank you. Thanks for being there and having my back.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Ooh, Nika, we can't hear you.
All right, moving forward with our announcements for the evening.
Yay.
All right. Did you know there are only 8 shows left for 2018? That's it. We have less than 10 shows left. Yes. Can you believe it? It's almost September, you guys. It's the middle of the month. Don't miss a single one. Head to whoisnikasmith.com for a downloadable schedule. And don't forget to set your reminders. Do more than print a report from your genealogy software. If you even print a report, because a lot of people don't do that. Or they don't even know that's a capability. Discover innovative and visually pleasing ways to share your research efforts that will keep your family wanting more and more. Join us next Tuesday, August 21st, 2018 at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern for Publishing the Family Story from Oral History to... And FYI, we are moving back to just 2 shows a month for the rest of the year. So after next episode, so you better get your fill in, All right, don't forget to tune into the archive of the long-running research at the National Archives and Beyond, hosted by BlackProGen Life panelist Bernice Bennett, who is going to be back in action next month in September. Also, check out the African Roots podcast, hosted by BlackProGen Life panelist Angela Walton Raji. Don't forget to join the conversation now. Participate in the live chat on YouTube, top right of the screen if you're watching on a computer, and bottom of the YouTube app on your mobile device. Just so you know, the chats are archived, so if we didn't reference links or anything else during the show, you'll be able to get those in the live chat replay. Also, weigh in on Twitter by tweeting us at BlackProGen or use the hashtag BlackProGen. All right, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to True Lewis.
Thank you, Nika. That was an awesome episode. I just want to thank everybody from coming out, whether you were new or one of our regulars. We just totally enjoyed you in the chat room. I just want to thank the panelists tonight. You guys just came through with everything. Teresa, we're happy for you. And, the ancestors are happy up there in heaven about everything that's going on. And we were just so happy and proud to present that here to share with our viewers. So we're excited to see you all next Tuesday. And I just want to say thank you. So good night.
BlackProGen Live.
BlackProGen Live.
BlackProGen.
Hello, everybody out there.
BlackProGen Live.
BlackProGen Live.
The unapologetic Black and people of color viewpoint.
The place where evidence tells the stories.